Hey YouTube, it's Elvis Ammo here. Hey, I was loading some ammo. The ammo that I shot the other day, the Supersonic 300 Blackout. That's a 160 grain bullet that we shot the other day, and I realized I was sitting here loading some of this, and I was like, before I finish loading, I'm going to let you guys see how I do it, because I've not officially showed you how I make this round. In my important news on chambering, I showed you how I make my bullets and a little bit of this and that. But I wanted to show you how I make the round that we shot the other day. This was the group that we shot with it. Alright, you can see that the paper broke here. These two were touching, and these two are touching, and this one is just almost touching. And that's the size of the group that I shot, and that was from about 30 yards. Okay, so in my opinion, you know, with my shooting skills, that's a good group. Okay, and I know at 30 yards, you know, whatever, you know, this is going to, you know, the spread obviously, you know, is amplified, you know, the farther out you shoot. But I wanted to let you know, the distance that I was shooting that from. You know, it wasn't 100-yard range I was shooting at. So anyway, that's the bullet that we shot the other day, and I'm gonna load some of these up and show you how I do it. 16.2 grains of 4198. This is the powder that I'm using, and for you guys that find a powder or buy a powder, if you buy a powder and you're not successful with it, it's not working, as long as it's in that as long as it's in that range of powders that is acceptable for the round that you're trying to create, then you're probably going to be okay. And it just means that that you're going to need to work harder at creating a load with the powder that you have. Okay, I know a lot of people, you know, are trying to purchase the 1680 and all of that stuff. In my case, I had a lot of IMR 4198, so I was determined to make a load to use this IMR 4198, and that's really the message I was trying to get across here. Is if you have a powder that you're using, don't give up too soon. Now, obviously, there's some powders that don't work very well for some loads. And in those cases, you know, that's not the point I'm trying to make. But if you have a powder that you know is within that range of the burn rate that you need for that bullet, and there's data on that powder for that bullet, then more than likely you can still be successful. You just have to keep trying and work those loads up until you find something that works. That's what I did with the IMR 4198. Not a lot of people talk about this powder. So just as an example, I thought I would throw that out. Now, one more thing that I wanted to mention is I had a subscriber that I can't even remember if I replied to this subscriber. Sometimes I get comments, and there's times when I need to, you know, find out you know, I need more information of my own before I can even reply to the comment. And sometimes that slows me down, and it makes me not even reply to the comment, unfortunately. And I really apologize if that's the case. But I had a comment, someone, you know, it was kind of a desperate comment, and rightfully so, about Hornady's data on the trim to length on the 300 Blackout, and I thought this would be very important to mention to you guys, and this is what the subscriber was trying to get across. Now, I don't know if the subscriber thought that I was using that particular data or not, but I certainly wasn't. But one thing to point out, if you're making 300 Blackout, if you're working up 300 Blackout, now this right here is the complete reloading manual for 300 Blackout. Okay, one book, one caliber, one book, one caliber, and these are very handy, by the way, to have on hand, along with other data, just like I have here in the Lyman 50th edition that I did a wonderful review on for you guys. Now, with this book right here, the one book, one caliber, they use different bullets, you know, Sierra, and they talk about, you know, the different powders, and this happens to be Hornady bullets that they're showing data on for the 300 Blackout. These are great books. They're like $5 or $6 or something per book. You know, one book, one caliber. They're really nice. You know, it gives you a variety of data to look at and compare to. But this is what the comment that I got was about Hornady's data. Now, I don't know for sure, you know, how old, how long ago the data came out on the trim to length. The trim to length. All right, Hornady bullets in their data. This is very important, guys. There is a trim to length. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's right here in front of me. Case trim length 1.390. That is absolutely incorrect as it could be. That's dangerous. You do not want to load according to that trim to length by Hornady. Now, since Hornady had put this information out, they had corrected it. But there's still probably a lot of data out there from Hornady on the trim to length. Don't use this data. Trim to length 1.390. Out of there. Okay. Now, right. Now, everything else that they had looked pretty decent as far as I know. Everything else seems good. Their maximum overall length and their well, even the max case length and the trim length is no good. No good. You use this, and you could get a slam fire. You could because the case is not the bolt's not going to close on that. And some of you guys will probably correct me on what else can happen. But anyway, you cannot use that. Make sure. Now, I know for sure that Lyman has it correct. So if you want to verify your trim to length, you can go to their website even. Trim to length 1.358. Alright, that's the trim to length and then right here is all of your maximums. Here's the maximum length on your case, 1.368. You really need to follow that information. That's good info that you need to follow. The maximum 1.368. The cool thing about this 300 Blackout is these cases don't seem to stretch a whole lot. All right, so once you make these cases, you know the process that we went through. Cut the 223 off and reform the brass with. This seems to be the solution to most of my problems, I can tell you that for sure, and it has been verified with other people that have commented. Now there is other dyes out there that work just beautiful, don't get me wrong, but this RCBS short base 300 Blackout sizing die and decapper works wonderful. It solved most all my problems with all the mix of range brass that I'm using. Now I do watch the Wolf Gold. Some of them still seem to be a little bit of problems. So my solution to that is I separate all of my Wolf Gold out of all the other brass that I have, and that way I just don't worry about it. So anyway, once you make this brass, once you go through the grueling process, of all, cutting it off and reforming it and trimming it, then you shoot it and then you reuse it. So this stuff can be used over and over again. As a matter of fact, I told you that, one of the things that I wanted to include in this video of making 300 Blackout with the rounds that I shot the other day is, kind of some tips and tricks. And that is, for one thing, the brass is reusable. And the second thing I wanted to mention is if you're I do things as cheap as possible because if I can make something work just as good or better for a lot less money, that's the way I like it. So one thing I wanted to throw out there is if you're buying brass, if you're buying Starline brass, or if you're buying prepped brass, I had one comment from a guy that bought some Remington prepped brass with primers in it and everything. Well, they did not work in his gauge. Now this is a Lyman gauge. Now I didn't show you this whenever I was talking about chambering. The reason I didn't show you this go no go gauge, or whatever you want to call it, is because one thing that you got to learn before this gauge right here is just for quick, to find out if it, very quickly if it's going to work chamber or not, after you load all of your ammo. If you're OCD about it, you can put them all in there and just keep dropping them in and dumping them out. But the reason I didn't show you this gauge, I like to have these gauges, but the reason I didn't show you is because I really wanted to show you if you learn how to make your brass correct to begin with, then this gauge is really just going to be for just a way to check your work when you're done. But if you learn what all your measurements need to be, then really you don't have to have that gauge, because you can measure it with this thing. Put your calipers on there, and the magic number for me. Now you see this one right here. That's 0.331, 0.330. All right. Now that's where it needs to be. Now the magic maximum number that I've come up with, and this is the reason why I was trying to show you, when you're making this stuff, use your calipers, measure this stuff, and the outcome is going to be good. So the maximum number was .333 in my rifle. As far as I know, the maximum in the data is, according, a couple of sources are a little different. To be honest with you, I've seen .334, .335. Well, I can tell you right now, .334 is pushing it for me in my rifle to chamber, so I don't use it. If it's .333, .5 even, I'll reject it. So .335 is some of the data that I've seen out there. There's no way that'll chamber in my rifle. All right. So I'm just kind of pointing out a little bit of information before we get started loading, and because this is information that if you're a reloader that's been loading forever and you just started reloading 300 Blackout, this could be information that's good for you. And if you're just starting out, this is information that you can understand, from step one on up, from the basics up. So so there you go. That's the measurements that I've come up with, and I've done a lot of research here, and by all means, it's definitely not the end-all information, I've come up with, but it's the information that I have. But anyway, now as far as reloading this stuff, what's the benefit of reloading it? One of the benefits of reloading your own ammo is cost, and you can make it do anything you want. If you're loading 300 Blackout, there's a range under 100 grains per bullet to up to 250 grains for a bullet. So there's a wide range that you can do a lot with all kinds of different powders and size bullets and all of that. So that makes it pretty cool. Now I use this bullet uses I put this particular round that we shot the other day is the one I'm really talking about here, is 16.2 grains. That runs me this is a wild guess, probably an educated guess you'd call it, about 9 cents for the powder is what it cost me per load. The bullet cost me, I'll just call it a penny. All right, a penny a bullet, depending on how you get your lead, and if you have to pay for it and how much you have to pay for it. But we'll say, and then the primer is about 3 cents. All right, so that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cents. About 13 cents per round is what it costs me. All right, and boy, that's a big difference from 50 cents a round to $1 a round or whatever it is you buy it for. It's very expensive. So anyway, that's what it cost me for one of these rounds. The subsonics are going to cost me less than that because they use less powder. It probably cost me 6 cents a round for the powder, and then the rest is the same. Maybe 10 cents a round for subsonics. So here we go. I just got through loading these. I was having some coffee here, and I just thought I'd load up some ammo when I had some extra time, and we'll get started loading. Alright, now what I'm using right here is I'm using this powder drop by Lee, about 20-25 bucks. And when you're using a powder drop, anything that you put powder in, label with a piece of tape, a sticker, whatever you like. I use tape, it's cheap. I put IMR 4198, 16.2 grains, because that's what I'm dropping here. Label it every time, and then when you dump this powder out, take that label off. Alright, when you put any other powder in it, you need to get in a habit of doing that. I don't care if you only own one powder, get into a habit of doing it now. Anything that you put powder in, put a sticker on it labeling what powder it is. Alright, now I have this set for 16.2 grains of IMR 4198. and this is prep brass. I've already put my primer in it. I didn't need to trim this. It's stuff I've already shot. Didn't even need trimming. It's been I put it in the tumbler and cleaned it up a little bit after I resized it, and then I took it out, put a primer in it, and then I flared the case with this Lee expanding die. All right, I just set it in here and pulled the handle down to get just enough flare on it to accept a bullet to where it's not going to scrape down the side of my lead as I seat it. All right, so here we go. What I'm going to do now is, this is already set, but I always like to run a little bit of powder through here a few times just to make sure that everything is running correct. I'll run a couple of loads like that, and then I will verify on my scale. I will verify that I'm getting the correct amount of powder in here. Go ahead and dump that out right in there. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm dead on 16.2. This thing does a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but it's as close to perfect as you can get. There's no such thing as perfection when it comes to doing this. But it's dead on. It's 16.2. Alright, and so I'm verified that. And now make sure there's nothing in the case again. Alright, and I'll just go ahead and just put this right back in here, put the lid on it, and now we can charge these cases. We'll go ahead and charge these. Yeah, this thing really comes in handy. It's a powder drops are a pretty big subject, I can tell you that. Man, there's a lot of anal people about their powder drops. And now this one right here, just because I had plenty of lead ingots, you know, I just went ahead and mounted this one right to a couple of lead ingots, because it makes it real handy, because I can just set it anywhere I want on the bench. I don't need to mount it anywhere in particular, and then when I'm done with it, I can just set it up on the shelf because it's on this very heavy base. Those two ingots right there weigh 3 pounds apiece, so that's a 6-pound base on this powder measure. And you know, this is a really cheap powder measure, and I'm telling you, thing works great. So that was kind of a clever way to mount this thing. I don't have to worry about where I mount it. They sell mounts and everything where you can mount them permanently. You can do it however you want, but anytime I can make something mobile, that's what I like to do. That way you don't have to stay in a particular place. Now, then after I do that, I look down in here, and you know, good lighting is the key actually. And I look down inside here, and I make sure all of them look even, like they're supposed to. Now, on this particular round, I'm running 16, so I can just move this out of the way. I just set it right back here. Right, it's out of my way now. Now, with the 16.2 grains of 4198 in this small case, I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm going to try to show you. I'm going to try to show you inside the case. Can you see it in there? Maybe you can. I think you can. See, it's right at the rim. The reason I'm showing you this is because, alright, you can probably see that. The reason I'm showing you that is because I don't consider this a compressed load, but powders are very funny. You know, powder positioning, you know, is kind of funny. So it kind of worked out with this load that 16.2 grains seemed to be, you know, the one to give me a nice group. Now I've tried, you know, 16 up to 16.5, and found that was a little extreme. For 1650 feet per second, that's the best I can do really with this powder that I'm using and this size bullet. Now these are 160 grain bullets, but in all fairness, they're dropping at about 165 grains. Probably that's 164 is about the average that I'm getting on this bullet dropping from the mold. Okay, so that's a heavy bullet to try to push as a supersonic. That's why I'd like to find around, you know, around that 130, 140 grains, so I can push it, you know, up to a couple thousand feet per second. That'd be kind of nice. I really haven't found one that I'm happy with yet. So if you guys have some information, you guys have been giving me information on that. That'd be nice to have. Anyway, this round goes in. It seats right there. All right, I'm gonna show you up close. This round, it seats right at the rim. All right, so it's not a compressed load. Right there. Right there. So it's not a compressed load, but it's touching the powder. Okay, so it's definitely holding the powder in place, but not compressed. So, you know, that's a kind of an added benefit sometimes when you find a load like that, and I'm thinking that could be helpful. So anyway, here we go. We're going to go ahead and load these up. I'm going to set some bullets on here. I fill them up like that, and I go ahead and take my bullets, and I just set them right on there. I know we talked about a lot of other things, and hopefully I give you some information that was helpful. And you know, as far as chambering goes, that's a huge issue, guys. Make sure that you're getting your data from a good source. Make sure that you have more than one source for your data, so that you can compare data. Sometimes you'll find data that's, you know, it depends on the source. You know, you'll find some data that's maybe not quite right, you know, and that's why, you know, that's why when I did a review on this book, just because this is reliable, and one of the good reasons to have it, you know, for guys that have been loading forever, you know, maybe it's, you know, it might not be, you know, the best book, but for any data source that you're looking at, you can compare that data with the conservative data that is in the Lyman 50th edition, or the 49th edition for that matter. And I know Fortune Cookie 45 LC had mentioned, you know, if you're looking for a data book, the Lyman 49th edition, they're on sale everywhere. So instead of paying 20 bucks, you can probably find it for 10 bucks. But you'll have a data source that you can compare other data to, and that's very important. Anytime you got more than one source, that's a good thing. So here we go. We just set our bullets right on there. That's what the bullet looks like right there. And they look pretty faces on it. Yep. So I just set them on just like that, and then I start running them in here. Now I'll have to double check this die because I just put it back in there. I think it's going to be about right. And make sure I zero this out. It's good. Okay. So I'll put it in here. 2.036. Alright, that's about perfect. You know, 2.035, 2.040 in that range, all the way down to 2.030 seems to be the magic number for me in my rifle with this bullet and this powder. 2.036 is what I got there. That's a great number for me. Alright, so then I just keep loading them up here. Put it right in there and just cruise right on down, seating these bullets. Like that. Yeah, this 300 Blackout project has been a lot of fun. I'll really tell you. I was a little reluctant to get a 300 Blackout because, you know, it didn't seem to make sense for me. You know, a lot of people shoot the subsonics with their suppressors, and I think they definitely have a place, and I guarantee you they're a lot of fun. But boy, the restrictions on them, you know, as far as the money it costs, you know, to get the tax you gotta pay to own one is a little weird. But one of these days I may end up getting one. I don't know. I mean, I just did that. I didn't have it seated. I say things like this all the time, like I'll never do that, and then I'll be doing it. So I'm not going to say I never will. But this goes pretty quick, really. I mean, look here, that's 30 rounds that I had left right there, and yeah, he set them in there like that. Main thing is always double check your work, you know, and then the feeding issues. Can't remember if I finished my story about. I had a comment from a subscriber that said they had bought some Remington brass that was primed. It was all ready to go. I think I lost some of that story. Sorry. It was all primed. They bought pre-primed, clean, ready to go brass, Remington brass, and none of it are. I think you said 1 out of 4 chambered, and so that's just an example of just because you buy something, don't mean it's any better than what you can make. Because I can tell you right now, this stuff that I'm making, 100% of it works. 100%. Alright? So, the other point that I was going to make is, if you're buying your brass, you consider this, you might be wasting your money. Because the cost of buying the pre-primed brass or just clean new brass is an added cost when you can just buy 300 Blackout ammunition. Alright? Just because, you know, you can do the math yourself, but it's always nice to have some factory ammo on hand. We know that. and when you shoot this stuff, you got your brass. It's, you know, it's 300 Blackout brass. So, you know, for me, my rule is, I'll be honest with you, I have never bought brass. Never. Okay? Period. I don't buy brass. Pick it up at the range, shoot it. Now I'm going to change this die out right here. Now for people that compete and all that stuff, now that's a whole nother story if you're doing all that. But for shooting, plinking, practicing, and many other reasons, many other applications. Now this is the now that die that I just used. This is the 300 Blackout Lee bullet seating die. Works perfect. You know, these things are awesome. And now this is the factory crimp die from Lee. Alright? And it works awesome. Now, whenever you crimp this stuff, it's very important that you want to crimp the mess out of it. You know, now I've showed you in the past where you take and turn the case. Now, if that's a lot of work for you, that's fine. I understand that. But what you need on this stuff is you need to have a very positive crimp. So, if nothing else, hold that thing down hard. You know, get a full crimp on it. And the reason I say that is because when you're shooting out of an AR platform, it's a very aggressive feeding mechanism in there. That bolt slams like a hammer, all right, and it drags these bullets across your M4 feed ramps at a warp speed pace, and those feed ramps are aggressive in themselves, sharp, aggressive. So you want to make sure that when this thing feeds, that this bullet don't get pushed back into your powder, because that can create a major problem. Because now your overall length went from 2.03635, whatever it is, and you just shoved that bullet in there, and you don't have that much space in your case anymore, and this thing's going to go off like a bomb. I don't mean to say that to scare you. The main thing is get a good crimp on it. Now, when I crimp this bullet, it's worth noting, I guess, that I crimp it inside on this particular Lee 160 grain bullet. I crimp it inside that last lube groove. Alright, that way it's got an aggressive crimp on it, and if it hits hard, it will not shove this bullet into the case. Alright, just so you know, that's how I do it. And I put a heavy, well, I say a heavy, I just make sure I get a full crimp on it, and I make sure I push this thing down and I hold it for a second. Instead of putting it in here, I'm giving you an option. Instead of putting it in, turning it, that is a recommended way to do it. But at the least, when you're going through this process, push this thing down and hold it tight. Get you a good crimp on it. Make sure that bullet does not push into the case as it's feeding, and you're going to be just fine. No problem. So this is the end process in loading. The only thing I didn't show you was prepping the cases, and I told you what I did is I just took all of the brass that I shoot that I know functions in my rifle. I put in everything that I shoot, I put in a bin, separate container, and then I put it, and then I take and I don't clean it or nothing. I go ahead and take me a Ziploc bag like this, and you can tell I've used it. It's got lube in it, and you're really better off to have a liquid lube. This is just Frankfurt Arsenal case lube. That stuff is just awesome, and boy, I mean, this, you can do thousands of rounds with this bottle, I swear to you. And you literally just take and squirt a couple of shots in a Ziploc bag like this. A couple of shots is a lot. And the nice thing about it is when you spray it, it's a mist, so it really covers the whole inside of that bag. And then let's see. I'm just going to throw, I'm just going to throw some cases in there. Alright, just to show you. I take my dirty bullets, my dirty 300 Blackout, and I put them in that, I put them inside this Ziploc bag like this. And I just take my hands and go like this, and now I'm smearing this lube that's all over the bag, all over the cases, just like that. And you can do a couple of hundred at a time like that. Very easy. Alright. Anyway, that seems to be this liquid. If you're using creams and paste like a lot of people do, you can create some air pockets when forming your brass, and that's the reason I'm showing you this. Now I just used some hand loads there, some pistol brass, but I just wanted to show you how I prep my brass. While it's still dirty, I do that, and then I use my RCBS short base decapping resizing die, and I go ahead and knock the primer out, form the brass, and then from there it goes right in the tumbler. Tumble it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, nothing special, and take it back out, and then I have cleaned, deprimed brass, and I go ahead and put my primers in it, and then I use my case expanding die so that I can flare the top of my bullet, the top of my brass, so that it accepts the case. All right, and then you seen at that point where you just seen me fill in the cases with my powder, and you verify your trim to length, of course. Make sure it's within the specs that you're supposed to have, and then you seat your bullet, and then you crimp your bullet like we're doing right here. Good aggressive hard push on that. That's the way I like it, because the idea of that bullet shoving down into the case as it's feeding is not something I can live with. As crazy as I am, I'm not suicidal. Alrighty, YouTube, that's really, I was loading the rest of this ammo up, and I was like, you know what, I just showed, the other day I shot that ammo, and I had questions, you know, about the bullet that I was shooting, and some of the other questions were, you know, how is the leading in my rifle, and I'm going to do a video on that. I get that question a lot, and you know, seeing is believing. You can tell somebody all day, I don't get any leading. But people, they believe you. They just want to see it. And that's really the case. So there we go. Got some beautiful ammo that I just loaded. Loaded all of this. Isn't that nice? You know, I mean, that's just beautiful ammo running at 1650 feet per second. They shoot very well. You know, I've not had any function problems, zero. And, you know, leading is zero. But I'm going to do a video on that. And as a matter of fact, I may do one pretty soon because I've been shooting this thing quite a bit. And so I haven't even cleaned it in between. So I'm going to go ahead, you know, it's really been like 4 days of shooting a little bit here and there with it, and not cleaning it. Now I have squirted a couple of shots of the Remington, the Remington oil in my bolt. I've done that usually before I put it away. If I'm able, I'll just shoot it a couple of shots inside my bolt, and I'll leave it like that, especially if I'm shooting it the next day, unless I've shot thousands of rounds, then I'll clean it. Anyway, or if you're going to put it away for even a week without shooting it, I'm going to clean it. But that's just how I do it. So anyway, YouTube, well, here's the ammo. This is, if you got, you know, this right, people talk about these case gauges. Lyman makes one. It's very inexpensive, and this thing is as good as anything I've seen. Alright, I can drop them in there. 100% of my ammo, because I didn't use this as a cheat. What I done was, I wanted to know what measurements. What are the measurements? What is the formula? Because once you know the measurements that you can get away with for chambering, then this right here is just to check it with. Alright? So don't rely totally on your case gauge. Rely on your measurements. Because it's like anything. Once you learn how it's done, what to expect, exactly what the specs are, then you know, checking your work is just that, just checking it. So anyway, YouTube, I'll see you in the next video.